We had found a backup match here for round number 2. That's going to be Will on Amulet versus returning player from last round, Joe, still on Esper Reanimator, like we saw. Both these players are both 1-0. And in game 3 currently with Will on the play, we see a pretty powerful start powering out an unlicensed hearse and having an 0-3 back as well. The Arboreal Grazers serving as pretty good fodder for the Archons. It's going to help the Primeval Titans and Cultivator Colossus, Hydroid Krasis. I think it's going to help those stick around a lot more and be more impactful for longer. Last game, we did see Joe board in Ashiok, Nightmare Muse, or the 3-drop on the Shadow of Doubts. Well, starting the growing the unlicensed hearse going to be pretty pivotal at some point in this game. It's going to be large enough to be able to take out Ashioks or even kill Joe. Let's see, Sakura Tribuilder here and a third Cavern of Souls. It's going to be just a passing of the turn there, and we will untap with 6 mana on Will's next turn, so we'll see if there's a Primeval Titan or card of sorts in his hand after that. Joe's looking at a Solitude and a Grief dress down as well. So pretty stacked hand for Joe here, going to be very reactive and stopping the game plan of Will right in its tracks. We'll see pitching the Malakir Rebirth, so it's just going to be 1 Grief effect here, and I believe that was the only black card for him, so that makes sense. I think it's just Endurance beside you, and Endurance will bite the dust here. I think we're just going to see Joe ephemerate the Grief anyways, even though we know it's a Beseiju, but it's still going to keep the Grief in play and give us the opportunity to rebound something with the Ephemerate, whether it is a Grief or not, we will see. We're going to find a land off of the Sakura Tribe Elder. Untap. Will this Primeval Titan get caught by the Dress Down? And then Joe still has to spend a Solitude answering it, but at least he's not losing card advantage there. He still draws a card off of the Dress Down and is left with the 3-2 Solitude in play. Looks like no Primeval Titan for Will. Good sign for Joe. Reveals Bounce Land with no Amulet in play. It's not going to be doing a whole lot here other than resetting a Cavern. Two mana Prismatic ending the hearse. Really, the only thing Will's board had going for him has just been stripped away, and we're basically just hoping to top deck a Primeval Titan here. We have 6 mana, but no threat to deploy yet. Yeah, just a pass back. Probably picked up another land there. Pretty unfortunate situation. At this point, Will's deck is a little better than a 50-50 of drawing a land or a non-land here. And there are a few non-land draws that aren't going to be very impactful here, but there's a plethora of good ones via Summoner's Pact, Primeval Titan itself, Cultivator Colossus, especially with lands in hand is good, Hydroid Krasis. Yo, Tempo, what's good? Tempo 1012 has to be Samir, right? Grief getting into the red zone now, starting the 7-turn clock against Will. Amulet Titan, not a deck that's going to be fetching too much, so life total is going to be staying the same or going up if Radiant Fountain is to be found. Here's a Faithful Mending for Joe, picking up a Persist and a Hollowed Fountain, as well as getting a couple life. Joe still has this dress down too, if Will is to find something like a cultivator that's just going to get got by the dress down. That's been a pretty decent night so far. We had a pretty big turnout, 16 players just for Labor Day. Usually have closer to 20, but we haven't had less than 10 in about 6 months. So we've been steadily picking up more players and more consistent players as well. We're going to be having our store championship coming up on the 19th, which is a Monday as well, and then should be on camera too. Joe adding on some more pressure with the Solitude here. Going to be coming across for 6 a turn. It is Chupacabra Games. We're located in Naperville, Illinois. You can see right there on the bottom right of your screen. No, I'm not the owner of the store, but I work here. I work the counter, also help out with the streaming down over here, and handle most of the Magic tournaments that we have here. Organizing mostly modern, and we have Commander as well 2 times a week. So Will did manage to find Summoner's Pact, which is going to net him Primeval Titan, while Joe was tapped out of Dress Down mana too. I stream personally at home. I'll play other games just on my PC. Something like TFT League of Legends is pretty common, but mostly you'll find Magic the Gathering content here, either live in person or Magic the Gathering online as well is a pretty frequent thing I do. Yep, we do play a decent amount of Melee here. Fortunately, we haven't had too many tournaments for that in person, but you'll definitely find some of that, some net play on my account during the rest of the week. Hell yeah, love to hear it. Right, had to mute the mic there as we were getting a phone call, but getting back to the game here, we see Will coming across for 6, which is going to get him a trigger on the Primeval Titan. Probably going to find another way to find a Titan, so Polaria West, I would imagine. Who's Joe? Joe is the Reanimator player at the store right now. He's the predominant player of Goblins as well. So it's just going to be Valakut, Lair of the Hydra. So hoping to get Joe to use a Solitude or maybe even a Dress Down to take care of the Lair rather than an answer to something like Cultivator or Primeval Titan as well. Just going to be playing a Besiju for turn, passing it back. Hard casting an Archon for Joe. It's going to get the Arboreal Grazer sacrificed as well as discarding a Cavern of Souls that we knew about off of one of the bounced Simic Growth Chambers. Was going to untap with a bunch of mana here, having the layer. Spend 4, float 1 green to transmute this Talaria West for a 0 drop. Probably going to find Summoner's Pact, which is going to find a Primeval Titan. And 6 mana is maybe being tapped here. We only need to tap 5. We have the 1 green floating off of the growth chambers. Doing a little mental math here, thinking about what he wants to do here. We know about the dress down still, but another turn where Joe's tapped out. I don't think he can afford to really wait too long here. So looks like Will's going to opt to find a Dryad instead. Joe Mama really walked into that one. Blame our table manager for not putting last names up there. All right. So it's going to be hard casting the Dryad. The floating mana as well. And we get the double bolt off of the Dryad extra land drop, which is going to take care of the Archon of Cruelty. See what Joe can do about that. Maybe he has some sort of reanimator spell that would take care of the Dryad. And cut down Will's cards in hand as well, which I can't imagine he has too many. It's going to be a swamp for Joe. Oh. No, there's no requirement of any type really. Anyone is free to enter our tournaments. They're just $6 for our local events, and then we have some higher end gatherings sometimes, like for the store championship or game day. Those events might be $10 or $15, but they are all free to enter. Maybe as long as you have a deck and some legal cards, you'll be able to be on stream and in our tournaments. So Joe's still holding on to this dress down, and he picked up a grief. So we'll get a good look at both players' hands here. Just gonna be an Azusa from Will's hand. We still know about the Simic Growth Chamber. Layer of the Hydra posing a pretty good threat here to Joe. It's going to be and here's a dress down to take care of this layer of the Hydra. Both players kind of scrapping to draw Some heaters off the top of their libraries. Joe's looking for Archons. Will's looking for Primeval Titans. Joe still has an Archon in his graveyard too, so he's drawing to just more than Archons as well. Any reanimate spell is going to be good here. It looks like he has Persistent Hand. Kind of surprised we didn't see him deploy it there. That is the Showcase dress down, not the Persist. Okay. Makes a little more sense now. Why we didn't see that cast during his main phase. Although being able to cycle for a card isn't terrible on the main phase either, just trying to find another way to persist. Hidden Indulgence for Joe is going to find Muldrifter to put into the graveyard. Didn't get a great look at what he drew. Another Muldrifter, okay. March is going to take care of the Dryad. Draw for Will was Unlicensed Hearse, and we're just going to make a big Hydra here. Sending Joe down to 3. And to cast a Muldrifter, we've got a lot of good draws and plenty of mana for Joe here. That is timing around for our players, but I did give them a 3-minute time extension for moving over to the feature match, but it looks like that might have been accounted for already, and we're just going to be going on to turns here after this turn 0. Hearse will be activated, eating a few creatures out of his graveyard, out of Joe's graveyard. Urza Saga is the find for Will. There's a lot worse in the side of the Ashiok, but it's still being able to produce some constructs will be pretty vital for these upcoming turns. As Joe is only at 3, so one of these Saga tokens will probably be able to connect since the Muldrifter's on blocking duty for the Lair the Hydra. Yeah, Muldrifter will jump under the Lair of the Hydra bus. You know, I have been looking into getting another camera set up for the booth. Don't quite have that set up yet, as still like more of a public space, even where we're casting, but maybe in the near future we'll get some of that. Unearthing a Solitude. And that's going to do it for this game 3. Will squeaking out that win against Reanimator, coming down to turns, time and round, and the tops of their decks. So pretty solid match here against these players, and we'll take a small break and see you guys back here for round number 3. All right, we're back here for round number 3 with looks like fan favorite Jurok versus Aiden. Jurok we know is on Team of Rhinos, and for Aiden, I don't think we know what he's on yet. I looks like a Blood Moon in his opening hand, so might not be the best matchup for him. We see Blood Moons out of the sideboard from Rhinos all the time, so we'll see. Looks like Aiden's going to be mulling down to 5 here. So it's going to be turn 1 Forest Abundant Growth for Aiden here. Going to be making his lands pretty resilient to Blood Moons. If COVID being cured was decided by Jurok winning this match, I mean he's playing hot today. I'll say that. He's drawn well. He's playing pretty tight. I don't think he's made any clerical errors. So I mean I'd say our the hopes for humanity is looking pretty good if that were the case. Aiden's fetching up a planes here. Okay, so I believe this is the Enchantress deck that we saw on last week's stream. Um, I thought it might have been Ponza, but off of the Blood Moon. But fetching the planes there definitely leads me to believe that we're looking at an Enchantress build of sorts here. Looks like we have Sithis in the hand. Times 2, maybe 3. Even Utopia is probably hanging out there as well. But Aiden choosing to just pass the turn here. Nothing else to really develop as of right now. He's doing God's work, as you could say. And he's playing a third land here. No rhinos, or at least not on his main phase. Might see a violent outburst coming out on the end of Aiden's turn. I don't think he has a great way to deal with rhinos, honestly, outside of something like Thin Ice, um, or maybe the Overload Path to Exile spell that's name is something that I can't remember. Winds of Abandon. That's the one. Might be something that we see out of an Enchantress build. Maybe even an O-Ring effect too, but that would really only deal with um, half of the Rhino cards, which is why that strategy is so powerful. We'll leave that one to the scholars. a Sithis, and that's going to come down. So this Utopia Sprawl will be able to draw a card. Trigger, draw a card, gain a life. Sith is very powerful draw engine for this deck. We see a lot of powerful cards from MH2 for this archetype, but unfortunately, like we are seeing now, they are quite vulnerable. That Sanctum Weaver is also an X2 and is just going to be blown out by shock effects from this deck. We see Dead Guns, Bone Crusher Giants, and obviously the Bolt and Unholy Heat effects that are just going to wipe the Enchantress Shell apart. So but if the Enchantress Shell is allowed to set up and make a bunch of mana, it is pretty hard to stop it once it gets rolling. So 4 mana available to Aiden right now. Something like a Blood Moon might not be terrible here, although Jurok would not be able to cast any of his Cascaders. Still has Fury accessible to him through a Blood Moon. But not being able to make 4/4 Rhinos seems pretty powerful. On the end step to see if Jurok has anything. Looks like a Violent Outburst. And it's an Endurance. Okay. Definitely a lot weaker than 8 power here, but it's a clock nonetheless. Here's 5 mana. We're probably going to see a Fury here. Yep. And this does give Aiden the opportunity to play more creatures, presumably, since we're seeing a Fury being casted here. Jurok still could have something like a Force of Negation to take care of a Solitary Confinement or a Blood Moon. So Fury is going to get caught under this Anthan Ice we were talking about. Yeah, nobody's escaping the Vandhammer. 10-second timeout. I got a few options for timeout length, so better watch that watch that chat. All right, so solitary confinement's going to come down alongside. Um, the Sithis, and that's going to allow for a lot more card draw to happen here. And with a Fury off the table, that clock is reduced by a lot. Dragon with the suspended and crashing footfalls here, a little late. Might not come off suspended until it's a little too late, but we'll see what Aiden can do here. Sigil of the Empty Throne is going to be a quick way for Aiden to win the game, especially in this matchup. Being able to match Jurok's 4/4s on the ground, as well as having 4/4s in the air of his own to mitigate the loss of life and also just swing in for a bunch of damage if we can cast enough enchantments. So Sigil in play, only one card in hand for Aiden, it looks like. So he's going to have to draw an enchantment off the top if he wants to end this game quickly. Yeah, two cards, it looks like, for him. Sieging the Sigil rather than the solitary confinement. Not sure how much I like that play. All right, so solitary confinement still in play, not letting Druck get much damage all through here. But it's going to be passing back to me. It does have things like Brazen Borrower. We're still in game one, so no force indications just, or force of vigors just yet. Druck's tapping 3 mana for Shardless Agent. So we're going to be presenting a lethal board once we can get this solitary confinement out of play. And it eventually will, as this is going to be Aiden's last turn with a card in hand. He will get one card that he draws from the turn, but he will have to discard whatever the card he has in his hand right now. Yeah, Aiden drawing his last card. No solitary confinement. He's just going to scoop him up. Game one's going to go to Drock, and we'll be back here post board for game number 2 in just a moment. We're all shuffled up and ready here for game number 2 with Aiden on the play. It's going to be shocking in a Temple Garden Probably playing a one-man enchantment of sorts, maybe Utopia Sprawl. That's the one. Going to be setting him up for pretty powerful turn number 2, barring any force of negations that we might see from Drock's side of the battlefield. It's going to be a Triumph tapped pass. Destiny Spinner was the draw for Aiden this turn. See what he can do for 3 mana. Looks like just going to be a Destiny Spinner, so not making great use of the accelerated mana, but still deploying a relatively large threat against the Shock deck mostly, as a Destiny Spinner is a 2/3 here. But I believe her ability doesn't untap the land. Is that nice? Yeah, so if he were to animate one of his lands next turn, it would not be able to attack. So hopefully we have something to do for 4 mana, if not another 3 drop on the following turn. It's going to be turn 2 suspended crashing footfalls for Jurok. And here is an Enchantress. Enchantress Presence. So that will provide a source of card advantage for Aiden here, and be a little bit harder to remove for Jurok's side of things. See if we see a Cascader for Jurok here, or we might see just some mana held up for interaction. All right, so we'll be Charlotte's Agent creating 10 power for Jurok here. We'll see if there's any forms of interaction here for Aiden. It could be the solitaire confinement. That is a good way to stall the game out a little bit, and we have the Enchanter's Presence, so that's going to mitigate the loss of the card for turn. There's 3 mana for Aiden here still, but I mean, he can play a lot of his spells, but being able to chain them together is really what's powerful about the Enchantress deck. Aiden's going to find himself another basic forest of the snow-covered variety. pushing himself up to 4 mana. See if we can find another way to draw some cards here. It's going to be Abundant Growth. That's going to get 2 draws for 1 green, which is pretty incredible. Like an on thin ice for Aiden. So that might be taking care of one of the rhinos here. We might have 2 on thin ices. So that's going to be a way to not take 8 a turn here. Get rid of one of the rhinos. Really like to see a Yorion in this Enchantress pile. I like being able to flicker all of your enchantments, get draws off of Abundant Growth, as well as reset your Anthenices if you so wish. And it's just it gives you another way to win the game pretty quickly, just having the 4/5 flyer. But the downside is having to add a lot more cards to your deck and ruin the consistency a little bit. So I understand the concession to that. If we get this Sanctum Weaver to stick around, we will be able to activate the Destiny Spinner to make a relatively large um, land here and come across for a few damage and get this game over with. But until then, we are just going to keep drawing cards with the Enchantress spells and starting to build up bigger and bigger every turn until we can assemble something that's either going to draw a lot of cards in a turn or be able to produce enough mana to basically take over the game, cast Emrakul, and as many enchantments as you really need to be able to clear the board. Druk is going to cast another Cascader here, another Shardless Agent that's going to find Crashing Footfalls, hopefully, and start the pressure. As if Aiden can't find a Solitary Confinement or something like that, we're going to be facing down a decent amount of damage that he's going to have a relatively hard time dealing with, as we've already been through 2 Anthenices. And here's a Force of Vigor pitching up one of the last Crashing Footfalls for Jurak here. It's going to take out 2 pretty key pieces for Aiden right now and leave him with no creatures and no permanents that are really going to impact his game plan that much. We do see 2 of the Sanctum Weavers right now, which is going to net us a bunch of mana. 8 if they stick around just from the creatures. Here's a Sterling Grove going to protect our mana dorks a little bit. So maybe just 1 Sanctum Weaver as opposed to both, and then getting blown up by a Fury. Now we're demanding an answer to Sterling Grove. Sterling Grove coming down just a turn too late. After this Force of Vigor would have been a great way to stop that from being able to get the full 2 for 2 there. Drakewell on tap with 14 power in play. Or sorry, excuse me, 12 power in play. And Sanctum Weaver's probably not going to be blocking, so we might see Aiden lose a big chunk of his life total here. Yeah, we're going to beats. Second with the crew. Do we have a Violent Outburst for lethal? It appears not. Aiden sacrificing his Sterling Grove, probably going to find Solitaire Confinement, I would imagine, just so he can stay alive this turn. Yep, there it is. It's going to be Destiny Spinner to up the enchantment counts. We're up to 5 now? 6 off of the Sanctum Weaver. But this is going to result in a dead gone before the Destiny Spinner resolves. We're going to float some mana, so we still have 5 mana here. That'll allow us to play the Sanctum, or the Solitaire Confinement, as well as a Sithis, it looks like. Yep. Tapping the land will go up to 6, so we're going to get a draw off of the Sithis, as well as have the Solitaire Confinement in place. We don't die to the Rhinos this turn. We'll see what Jurok has to answer this. If he has a Force of Vigor or a Brazen Borrower to bounce the Solitary Confinement, either of those I think would win him the game here. It's like the last card in hand for him was just an Endurance that's going to shuffle up on the Crushing Footfalls in the graveyard. After we fetch in response to the trigger, it looks like. All right, it looks like Jurok did find his route to victory here with an insurmountable board of rhinos, and we are going to be moving on to the undefeated bracket for Team of Rhinos today. Nice job on Jurok, and good plays from Aiden as well. We in the end, Enchantress just could not go the distance, and Force of Vigor is still a hell of a card. Needed to see a few more Sterling Groves for Aiden there if he wanted to win that match, I think, but he was just about to turn the corner there in that second game. All right, so we're gonna take a look around. There's not too much time left in round, but we'll see if we can find another match. But if not, we'll see you guys back here for the last round, number 4, in a few moments. Right, we're here for round number 4, a little delayed here. I do corrected the feature match tables ruling. I just had a little issue of drawing an additional card when we were supposed to bottom a card for turn or for the mulligan, but got it all taken care of and play has resumed. Looks like Jurok is end stepping a brazen borrower, and Will has a dryad accompanied by a couple ramp creatures, and it looks like one card in hand. So if we have a Primeval Titan or payoff card, we could see that coming as soon as next turn. I think game 1 is more favored in Amulet Titans. The favor is more in the Amulet Titan deck, but games 2 and 3, the Rhinos deck does get access to Blood Moon, as well as 4 Force of Vigor, which are very powerful in the matchup and basically force Will to be on less of an Amulet Saga plan and more of on a natural land ramp plan with either Azusa Dryad or Arboreal Grazer. And here's the Summoner's Pact. We'll see if a Force of Negation comes down. It's really the only way Jura can interact through a Primeval Titan. I don't believe he's on main deck Subtlety, but if he had one, now is the time to cast it. And we do see Drug pitch cast to the Force of Negation rather than just paying the mana that he did have available to him. This does lead me to believe that since he has 4 lands in play, he might just have the Subtlety in hand, and we'll see what Will can do here if he has another thread, but it looks like he's just going to be passing it back. And looks like the Crashing Footfalls is finally going to come off suspend, netting Jurok 8 power coming out next turn, be able to attack as they are still summoning sick from just being created. We'll see what Jurok can do with 4 mana, maybe hold up a Subtlety. I think I would have liked to see the Brazen Borrower come down on end step. But we did pitch it to the Force into Negation. We would have had to pay for the Force if we didn't pitch. So Jurok coming in for 3 again, sending Will down to 14. We're going to make a card instruct on Jurok's end step and go back to Will's side of things. It's going to be an expedition map found off of the saga. That's going to find us at Tolaria West. Would imagine that's how we're going to be getting our next threat here. Rock suspending yet another crashing footfalls, coming in for 11 damage, and Will not having the best blockers either. Still no threat. Though it looks like we did transmute that Talara West. I apologize. I had to step away for answer a judge call, so I did miss a few things. But I would assume we got a Summoner's Pact, and Jurak has a couple of cards in hand, so we might have a Force of Negation to take care of this Force if that comes down, or this Pact if it comes down, but it looks like it's going to resolve. Will's searching through his deck. He's going to find a Primeval Titan, I believe. You can if you want. And so I had to go attend to something else, but I've just been informed that Will did find a couple of valor cuts off of the Primeval Titan, and then with the Dryad in play, that was enough to take care of Jurok for game number one. But game number two, like I was saying earlier, we are going to get access to um, some Blood Moons as well as Force of Vigor, which is going to be a little troublesome for Will to overcome, but he knows what's coming and will promptly play around it as best as he can, I'm sure. I'm just being cognizant that Blood Moon is going to exist and keeping hands with basic lands, as well as being able to find a Boseiju or just a hand that makes a Titan that could find a Boseiju. And Will's definitely going to be bringing in copies of Engineered Explosives, if that's something he has in his sideboard, as well as um, maybe Veil of Summer if that's something if he's sitting on those. And it probably be trimming most of his Urza sagas, maybe an amulet or two, or pact, as all of those spells are susceptible to force negation, which Drak probably just has to leave in, but does have a lot less targets post aboard, I would say. Players are shuffling up for game number two here. We should have Drak on the play, so hopefully he boarded out his Gemstone Caverns, as that it will be pretty null and void for matches on the play, and will probably looking for a turn three Titan if possible. There are ways Druck is able to interact with that, such as subtlety, even if he gets all the way to casting it. But looks like he's looking at a hand with not too many lands in it, so I'd probably say that's going to be shipped back into the deck. But looks like he is going to keep and lead on a Wooded Foothills. Might be suspending a Rhino turn one. I think that's really slow in this match. And I'd rather hold on to that to pitch to Force of Vigor, but let's see what he's got. turn one force for both players and turn one play, but Amulet of Vigor is a lot more powerful than the suspension of a Crushing Footfalls. Second land island. Like on Will's upkeep, we're going to ice the forest. It's going to be a forest and pass back for Will. Footfalls is going to go down to 2. Third land for Jurok. Is this a Blood Moon turn? Or are we making 4/4s? Either way, there's merit to both. Still having both forces in play though. De-incentivizes the Blood Moon a little bit, I think, but looks like we might have a violent outburst up Jurok's sleeve here. It's going to be an uncounterable Dryad, presumably. The cavern is naming either Dryad or Nymph. The second land will be an Urza Saga, so we did leave some number of those in post-board, it looks like. That would be quite the turn to drop a Blood Moon if Jurok had one, but judging by the way this turn played out, I don't believe he does. So it's just going to be a Brazen Borrower for Jurok. One more turn before Crushing Footfalls comes down off suspend. And it's going to be an Otawara. Come across for 3, start the clock now. Will's going to untap, though. This could be a Primeval Titan turn. We do have access to 6 mana if we find a bounce land here. Well, here is the bounce land. On tap, bounce itself. 3rd mana. So backup Dryad or an Azusa potentially. Yeah, here's the Azusa. We'll see if Jurok has any sort of interaction to stop all of these land drops if Will decides to go for a bounce land play. It's like we are transmuting Tolari West. I'm not sure how much floating mana we have. I think 4. And then we still have 2 land drops left. Thanks to Azusa and Dryad. We're going to be casting our footfalls here. And I thought last turn we were going to be seeing a Titan, but we are definitely going to be getting this packed next turn for Will. So that's going to result in a threat of some sort. So I think Jurok might not make it through this next turn. We'll see if he has a Force of Vigor that could take out the Dryad and an Amulet or Urza Saga. But being able to deal with the Dryad means that he's probably not going to die to Valakut, and it's going to make combat math a little bit harder. But Drak does decide to come in with the rhinos, but those did just come in, so they do not have haste, making that decision a little bit easier. Just an attack for 3, it looks like. Be doing some pre-combat math to decide if was going to be attacking with a Primeval Titan next turn, or see what's going to happen. Saga's going to go up to 3, probably find another amulet, and provide Will with a lot more mana and a potential to kill with Primeval Titan if he so chooses. But it looks like Expedition Map is just going to be the find, and we're going to crack that immediately. And we're going to find a Talaria West. Be a Cavern for the first land for turn. And we're going to transmute with the colorless. So blue colorless to find Summoner's Pact. Will's draw is making it extra hard on him, just not giving him the raw creatures, making him really work for finding his threats, which is where Drak does get an advantage, where his force of negations are live when they do have potential to be very dead. Gonna be floating some mana here. Looks like Will's just talking him through. I'm gonna keep doing this until I run out of land drops. So that should put him at 6. As we did put the cavern earlier this turn, so 6 mana. Here is Primeval Titan. We have a subtlety. Looks not, as Will's still looking through his library after the trigger. He's going to find Crumbling Vestige and Slayer Stronghold. The ETB is going to produce a white, and then the untapped Vestige is going to make a red, and then an activation of Slayer Stronghold is going to be good there. But it looks like Drak does have a dead gun, which will unsummon the Primeval Titan and save Drak for this turn. Alternatively, Will could have gone for a couple of Valakuts here, but that may have left him vulnerable in the following turns. I think Will was kind of just going for it, hoping he didn't have Dead Gun, as Dead Gun would have been a great way to stop the production of mana, killing the Azusa, and not even letting Will get to the Primeval Titan. So a bit of a mishap there, missing a line and kind of just looking a little too far in advance where Dead Gone is an unsummon on the Titan, but if you just can prevent your opponent from resolving the Titan in the first place, that's going to save you a lot of trouble, since there's just going to be 2 less lands in play. And hopefully Drak can find a way to either stop the Titan from coming down in the form of a subtlety, or be able to kill his opponent this turn. But I don't think killing his opponent is an option this time. We are going to get rid of the Dryad, but there's going to be a large giant coming at his face next turn. We can attack for 11, but that is not lethal. Drak does have 2 cards in hand. Could be blue card subtlety to take care of this Primeval Titan. That would buy him just enough time. Will still having access to Azusa is going to net him enough mana, especially with his double amulet, to be able to cast this Primeval Titan. This is going to be 4 mana off of the first land drop. Picking up a cavern, it looks like. Here's a Dryad. So this is just going to be lethal then if we can get another bounce land into play. Here's a cavern. And yeah, here's the second bounce land. 2, 4, 5. We have 1 floating, yeah. And there's the Titan we know about. Should be getting a Boros Garrison and a Valakut here. It's going to give haste to the Primeval Titan. And then we are going to come across for 8, trample, and get Valakut Vesuva, copying the other Valakut, and that's going to be more than 13 damage of bolts. There is the consideration that um, Druck could have a Force of Vigor here, and that's kind of why I like getting the Boros Garrison, so you can still have the Primeval Tide attacking for 8. Um, but he would need to have exactly Force of Vigor right now, or else he's dead. Yeah, and looks like that'll do it. Amulet Titan taking down this local here tonight, going 4-0, and a close second behind him, a team of Rhinos, locking things up at 3-1. Not a bad showing of the deck. I think he might have just need to mulligan a little more aggressively to something like a Blood Moon that he's pulling out now, or even Force of Vigor, which I'm curious if he even actually brought in because it doesn't look like he's pulling any of them out. So I'm gonna go have talk with our players and see if there's any more matches we can get on. But if not, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.